Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crazy Dad's Garage. We're gonna do something here, a how-to video on something that is just gonna be convenient to the public out there. So I've got my old Chevy pickup that it's an '04 Silverado that I've been driving since it was nearly new, right here behind me, and it's in need of some maintenance right now, and so I'm gonna be doing that and showing you some how-to things here. So this is going to be how to replace the spark plugs and the spark plug wires on this thing. This truck has been amazing to me. It's got about 350,000 miles on it. I've had it since it only had 9, and just have driven the wheels off of it. It's been a fantastic pickup. I'm just going to do a couple things to it here and do 2 or 3 different videos on fixing it up. So a little deviation from my normal hot rod project stuff, but these videos tend to get a lot of traffic on my YouTube channel, so I like to do them now and again. So we're going to jump into this. So how to change spark plugs in an '04 Chevy Silverado with a 5.3. So this will apply to several years of these Chevy Silverados here. And it'll be the 5.3s, the 6.0s, the 4.7s, I think is the smaller size of it. But the process is all the same. I'm going to flip the camera around here. So here you go. Obviously, the spark plugs are under the hood. I think everybody will know that, but just for the sake of being thorough, let's cover that here. So on these engines, they're kind of different from the old school engines that we usually work on here. You have these coil packs right here. So instead of just having one coil in a distributor on these things, they have a separate coil for each cylinder. And those coils have a spark plug wire right here that goes down to the spark plug, which is right down there. And what we're going to do is replace the spark plug wire, little short one down here, and the spark plugs. So I'm going to get the camera set up and we will start that process. This is ultra simple, doesn't even really require video, but I know there's some people out there that'll want to do it on their vehicle and have never tried it before. And honestly, on these things, it's super simple. And so let me get the camera set up and we will walk you through that. Okay, here I have most of the stuff that I need to be able to do this job. It's, like I said, an ultra simple job. So here's my spark plug wires. These are my spark plugs. Now, I've got these double iridium spark plugs, and they are expensive, but there's a reason I did that. So this truck, this engine right here, it's like 355,000 miles on it right now. And I still am running the original spark plugs in it. And I haven't noticed any performance decreases or anything in it. And I'm just changing them because it's just flat time. I've been, 5 years ago, at about 150,000 miles maybe, I think, I pulled one of the plugs. I pulled the wire off, pulled the plug out just to look at it. And that plug looked brand new, except it was a little blacker from being in the cylinder. And so I just haven't messed with them. But when I pulled that wire off and in the process of redoing that, after that it started throwing a code every once in a while. A check engine light would come on and then it would go off because it wasn't a consistent thing. But I've just lived with that. So the owner's manuals, I think, tell you that you should change the plugs about every 100,000 miles. But I'm here to tell you that it's not hypercritical. Based on this experience that I've had, unless you're getting a drivability problem or throwing a code or something like that, I don't think it's super critical, because the quality of the spark plugs has gone way up. And this iridium is a new material that they're making them out of in the last 20, 30 years that lasts way longer than an old conventional cheap spark plug. Back in the day, 60s, 70s, you'd have to tune up your vehicle, and that involved changing the spark plugs, changing the wires, changing the points, condenser, cap, rotor, and resetting those things and all of that kind of stuff. You had to do that ever 20 or 30,000 miles. And so today, the fact that I've got a 350,000 plus mile engine here that's still running perfectly convinced me that whatever I put back in here, when I finally decide to do it, I'm going to go with what the factory put in there, which was these iridium spark plugs. And so I'm doing that. I got a good set of spark plug wires. We're going to do that. Now my truck will be good for another 300,000 miles probably, if I actually get that much mileage out of the engine. I don't know. But that affected my choice here. You could get cheaper spark plugs. These things were like $8 or $9 a piece on Rock Auto. Excuse me. And maybe as much as 10 or 12 bucks a piece in my local auto parts store. I could have gotten $1.50 plugs, but I intend to keep this truck until it just flat falls apart on me. And so I'm going to put original equipment style stuff back in it when I do these kinds of maintenance projects. So I'm just telling you that. You can skip over that part if you want. I'm okay with that, but that's part of my philosophy on what we're doing here. So we're going to now launch into the process of actually doing this. I've got one of my plugs here that got it open. So if you look at these spark plugs, they've got a different style tip than old style spark plugs. It's a pointed tip that's in there where your gap needs to be. There's a little bit of confusion online about what your spark plug gap is supposed to be. And I've personally found that most spark plugs that you buy come gapped correctly from the factory. And you can check them if you want. There's a discrepancy online whether this engine, they're supposed to be gapped at 40 thousandths or 60 thousandths. Now that's a pretty significant difference in gap. But I got my feeler gauges out here, and so interestingly enough, my gauges only go up to 30 thousandths, so I had to combine two of them to get 40. And I'm finding that I don't know if I can do this one-handed. No, I can't. But just trust me at this point, by putting those two gauges in here, I've got that plug came from the factory gapped at 40 thousandths. And that seems to be the consensus online, is that this engine needs 40 thousandths plugs. There's some confusion there, but most everybody's saying 40 thousandths. So that's what we're going to go with. The other thing is, these new modern engines those coils are putting out like 50 to 70,000 volts of power. And so that is enough power to jump even up to a 60,000 spark plug gap very easily. So that it's not going to be an issue what they're gapped at. But I'm at 40 thousandths. The consensus is there, so that's what we're going with. So I'm going to set the camera up now where you can actually watch me do this job, and then we will be back in a second. Okay, we're ready to go here. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit. There we go. All right, so down here, we're going to work on this one because it's the easiest one for you to see in the camera here. So a lot of times, these spark plug boots get, because of the heat and everything, they end up sticking to both the coil surface and the spark plug. So what I found is you want to get something there, get a hold of that boot where you can twist it lightly, and that will break that rubber loose from what it's glued to, and then just grab it and pull it off there. All right, then down below on the bottom, you're going to grab it and try to twist it until it breaks loose from the spark plug. It's not threaded on there, it's just the heat has caused it to glue itself to it. And that one is not coming off by hand, so I'm going to have to get myself some kind of tool and get down in there to where I can actually get it to break loose. Yeah, it's still not coming loose. There's enough give in the boot that it's flexing on me rather than actually breaking loose of the plug. So let me go get something else and actually get it to where I can twist that loose. Okay, I was able to get that off of there by using this pair of pliers right here. and getting a hold of that metal sleeve. Let's see here. I need to get a hold of that metal sleeve like that. Hope you can see that good enough to tell what I'm doing down there. And then by using the pry bar to pry on the pliers and pull the thing off like that. Obviously it was a little harder than that because I've already had this off just now, but that allows me then to get this thing up and out of there. All right, so at that point, you have your plug wire there with that metal sleeve on it. You're going to remove the sleeve. And what you got to be careful when you're pulling this off is to try not to damage it. You know, with your pliers, you could crush that thing and things like that. And it's going to be repairable in most cases, but you don't want to damage this if you can help it. So we have that off now. And we get our new wire. And the new wire is going to have that put in there like that. So now we have the wire ready to go back in place. Now let's see if we can get that spark plug out of there. When we're doing this, you need a spark plug socket to do this. It's possible to do it with a deep well socket, but there's actually a difference between a spark plug socket and a regular deep well socket. And that difference is that inside of a spark plug socket there is a rubber, it's really a ceramic insulator protector, and that's what that rubber piece is in there, and it normally is all the way down inside of there so you can barely see it, but the purpose of that is to keep the socket from twisting sideways and breaking that breaking the insulator off of there. So let's see if we can get this out of there. Let's see. There we go. Boy. Hopefully those are coming out without wrecking the threads in the head. When you have an aluminum head and a steel spark plug, they have the potential of seizing in the threads in the head and then tearing those threads out. And if you do that, then you got more problems than you want to shake a stick at. And I know a lot of the Fords in this same general era are famous for stripping those out, and I'm hoping that we don't have a problem here with our Chevy, but we'll find out soon enough as we get these things out of there. So. Get myself a short extension to use as a handle down in there. Seems to be coming out. Hopefully we'll be in good shape here. There we go. Alrighty then. I don't see any aluminum on my threads, so that's a really good sign. Man, I'm looking at this spark plug. Guys, you're looking at a 350,000 mile spark plug here. And there is no wear in there on that point. That is amazing to me. I could have kept running these things and not have had to have even changed them out. If you look at those two there. Yeah, I guess it might have worn down that little pointed tip a little bit. But at 350,000 miles, I would have expected that to be gone, not even functioning. but that thing does not look too bad. A little side note is I've got the rest of these spark plugs pulled out. Some of them are much more significantly worn than the others. Let's see if you can get that where it focuses in. You see on this one that pointed tip is almost completely gone. One of them was burnt clear down to where it just rounded off in there. So, you know, it was high time to change them for sure. And maybe it's things like this that were throwing those occasional codes that were giving me some grief too, because it was really getting difficult for that spark plug to actually function properly. Here's another thing. Sometimes when you're pulling them off, the wire will break loose from the actual connector that's down inside of there, so you got to fish it off. I just grabbed it with a pair of pliers. I was able to pull it right off of there. Yeah, well, anyway, that's just a side note that I want to throw in there. But that does show the amazing lifespan of these crazy iridium plugs. So that's why I'm going back in with those expensive plugs. All right, well, let's put our new one back in. Now this is a point where a couple other things that I neglected to mention earlier. You need to, when you're doing this, you need to have a packet or a tube of anti-seize lubricant. This is what you put on the threads of the spark plug, because again, we have the steel spark plug threads fastening to the aluminum head in here, and anytime you get two dissimilar metals together, it sets up a corrosive reaction there that can make them seize together, and causes galling, which is where your aluminum tends to stick into the threads and get pulled out, and all kinds of problems. So you want to put this on the threads of your spark plug, and then you want to also have some spark plug boot protector. This is a lubricant that you want to put inside of the boot so that the boot doesn't stick as bad to the porcelain part of the spark plug. So I have those two things. We're going to get them put on to where we'll put the anti-seize onto our threads here before we stick that spark plug back in there. And it doesn't take much of it. Get that stuff come out of there. There we go. You get about that much on the plug, and then we will spread it around there. And that stuff will spread itself out as we screw the plug back in. So, get ourselves ready to go here. Yeah. I always like to stick my finger in there to find exactly where the spark plug hole is. And then get it back in there, and you want to run it in as far as you can by hand, because that will tell you that you've got the spark plug moving in and the threads are not cross-threaded. Because if you get it started just barely and then put a wrench on it and then start cranking on it, if you have the threads cross-threaded, then you'll screw up the threads in there and create all kinds of problems for yourself. So let's get that run in there. Okay, that's about as far as I can go by hand. Now I'll get my extension out of the way. Ratchet back in place. Theoretically, There we go. Okay, let me show you another thing here. So here's my old spark plug. There are two different kinds of spark plug seats. You have this style where it's a cone-shaped tapered seat like that right there. And that goes in there and seats against another inverted cone. And that's where your sealing happens, is right around that beveled edge there. The other style comes up here and has a flat surface there. So the direct right angle across here. And then it has a little ring around it that's loose, and that ring is actually a metal gasket, and sticking that in and compressing that ring is what seals that style of spark plug. And it helps to know which one you have, because with this kind you want to run it down just until that seats against the cone, and then just give it a little bit more of a turn to actually make that seal. With the type with the ring gasket on it, you actually want to compress that gasket a little bit. So you're going to run it down till it stops, and then, you know, give it a little bit more of a turn than you would this thing to get it to actually go in there and seal. So we've got that up against the stop right now. So I'm just going to snug it up there, and that will have it sealed as good as we need to have it. Now my trick becomes getting this back off of the spark plug. Down in there in a uncooperative spot like that, I'm going to try using the... Oh, there we go. Well, I got the ratchet off anyway. Now I got to see if I can get the spark plug wrench off. Or spark plug socket. Actually, that's sometimes about as much of a challenge as getting the boot off of the thing. Let's try some pliers here, see if I can get a hold of it. There we go. And every time you do that, you need to check and make sure your rubber protector in there stayed with your socket and not on the spark plug. All right. So now we've got that on. Let's go back to our spark plug boot protector. Get our child-proof package open here. And where's my spark plug wire? Right there. Pull that metal sleeve back off. Then I need just a little bit of this. Let's see if we can get some out of there. Oops. Still child-proof. It's even 61-year-old proof. There we go. I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of that protector into the boot there. And then I want to get something to move it around inside of there. Let me see what I got. I'm going to use the tip of the old spark plug here, because what I want to do is get that stuff to go all the way around on the inside of that boot. Like that. All right. There we go. Now I'm going to put my metal sleeve back on there. Get down here and get that to go back on my spark plug. Push it on there till you feel that it's in place. And sometimes it's kind of hard to tell on those things. A boot will, sometimes they'll pop onto the spark plug. Other times they just, you got to push them down till you're sure they're in there. Then we're going to take this end and stick it back onto the coil. And there we have it. We've done this now. Simple project. You got to watch out for things like this. I don't have much clearance there between my spark plug wire and the shaft. My steering shaft returns all the time. So I don't want that to wear on my plug wire. So I need to rotate that wire around there till it pulls itself away from that steering shaft there. So I've got that because of the way this plug's built with a slight, or boot plug wire is built with a slight angle in it. That can be used to direct that away from my steering shaft. Let's see, I can also turn that bottom one a little bit, and that will keep me directed away from it so that I don't ever hit this. So there you have it. That's the simple process of doing that. We just have to repeat this 8 times. I'll show you. I'll take a couple more off on this side so you can see the process that I've used on getting those boots off, and hopefully that will be more visible from some of the different camera angles that we've got here. I'm gonna move the camera just a little bit here. Let's take that upper one off of the coil right here, and you'll be able to see a little better what I've done. So I'm going to get my pliers out here. I'm going to grab that boot so that I can turn it, and there you go. So get it broken loose right there, and it'll come out really easily that way. I don't think you can actually see that one. I'm going to have to do it a little differently. Let's find a good one that you can probably see in the camera to do that bottom one. I think I'm going to end up, I don't know if you can see that one good or not. I'm going to try getting a hold of that one down there. Let's see if we can get you moved to where you can see down there a little better. I think that'll probably help. All right, now, in order to do that, I'm going to get a hold of that metal sleeve down below. Let's see. Boy, I don't know if you can still see this very well in the camera. I can't see it very good from here, whether you can see or not. Sorry. But then I'll get my pry bar down there and pry against my pliers. So I want the bottom end. Let's see. Maybe in that way. The bottom end against my pliers around that ring, and then also against something hard and metal up here. Yeah, that's not even working well on this one. See, that's why this is actually the toughest part of getting these things off of there. Just getting that dang thing. Let's try the turning process here, see if that will get it. There, maybe that'll get us off. It's not wanting to let go. I've turned it enough that I'll bet the sleeve's turning on the boot though, rather than the boot actually turning on the plug. There we go. Got her off. Okay. Now we'll see what we ended up with here. I believe I might have damaged that sleeve more. Huh? It's kind of scratched up, but it's not... yeah, it's a little out around there, but I can live with that. So I'll go straighten this up a little bit, and maybe even take some sandpaper or a file and get the little Sharpies off of it, and it'll be ready to go and usable. So got that one off. Let's see if I can get the upper one off here. There. Actually able to get that one off by hand just by turning it, because I was able to get a better angle on it. So that's pretty much the procedure there, guys. You're going to do that, repeat that on all 8 cylinders, and you will have your spark plugs changed and ready to go on, and that should accomplish your job for you. All right, here's just a little clip to throw in there with all of them in place now to show you that I actually did finish the job. Yeah, I don't even know if you can see that one. There's the top of it, but yeah. Anyway, really the biggest struggle on this thing has been getting the old plug wires off. You'll find I did add another tool to my arsenal here, a little small pair of channel lock pliers to help me grab some stuff. And I also found that I needed another longer extension for my wrench. Made it easier to get in and out of some of those holes. But the thing about changing spark plugs is with each one, your setup on your wrenches and all of that stuff may vary. You just have to work through your assortment of tools and find the right stuff. That's why to just say I'm going to go out and change my spark plugs, and you go buy a spark plug wrench and a ratchet and an extension, that may not get the job done sometimes because you won't be able to get to stuff. But we did on this one. We were successful there. So I'm going to wrap this up and fit this in with the rest of the video. So, any questions, class? Yeah, I know. Can't see and tell me what you're thinking there, but that's how you go about changing the spark plugs and the spark plug wires on your Chevy LS engine, basically. It's really that simple. Like I said, probably the most complicated part of the whole thing is actually getting the old spark plug wires off. So we're going to move through the rest of this, but you've seen what you need to know and see now about how to do this job. I'm going to sign off here. I'm glad you took time to watch the video. Hope it's productive for you and that you learned some things from it. Again, changing spark plugs on these newer engines is not rocket science. You end up doing the things I've talked about, and that is on one of these LS engines in specific. On some of the other engines, it might be a little different, but the basics are still the same. So anyway, that's Eldon from Crazy Dad's Garage. I'm going to sign off here, and good luck on doing your job. I hope this was helpful to you.